Hey, welcome to Live and in the Studio. I'm Joe Baptista here at Quabbin Hill Studios in our main control room, and I'm going to talk to you today about how to collaborate when you can't get together. And we know this has been the situation now for quite some time, right throughout the entire world. And there are some things that you can do to make it easier, and hopefully you don't have to acquire a lot of stuff to make it happen. So I'm going to give you a few guidelines on how you can make this happen. So let's get going. So first thing what you need is to make sure that everybody has some kind of common DAW, digital audio workstation software. So one of the most affordable Windows-based software is Acoustica's Mixcraft 9. And it's super affordable. It's something that you can even get a free version. And there's, again, so it makes it easy for you to have a digital audio workstation. It's actually developed by some folks who used to work for Steinberg. Steinberg is known for Cubase, which I use personally here in the studio. It's my go-to digital audio workstation, but in order to collaborate with other folks, I actually have also purchased Mixcraft so that I can have a common DAW that I can use with other folks. It worked with all my VSTs, so all my regular ones that you can see, like Moto Bass, the Moto Drum, all of my addictive drums, all my other plugins that I have, it'll all work as well inside, but it allows me to collaborate. So how am I going to collaborate? Well, a couple things you need as well. So anybody who's working on audio or audio components to go with the songs, they're going to need to have some kind of sound card, whether it's an external sound card or something in their computer. So you can actually get, for not a lot of money, with audio inputs, somewhere to plug your microphones in, less than $150, you can actually get yourself a pretty decent USB sound module that will attach to your computer. And that's where you can plug in your microphones and all that stuff and record your audio and your sound. You then also need something to monitor, some basic speakers. Again, if you're recording something at home, though, you can actually use headphones. And most of the bottom end or the lower, more economical sound cards actually have headphone jacks built right in. So that's pretty cool. You are also going to need maybe a microphone or two to capture your sound. Depending on what you're doing, on what you're recording, you're going to need a couple microphones. Again, they don't need to be earth-shatteringly expensive. You can get some decent results if you follow half-decent mic techniques, and we're going to talk a little bit about mic techniques in an episode coming up here shortly. So, you've got your sound card, you've got your DAW, you've got your software loaded into the machine. Well, now how do you collaborate? So, what has to happen is, initially, you're going to have to agree, and you can do this over Zoom calls. A lot of this pre-production stuff can happen over Zoom calls, where you're going to lay out kind of the structure of the song. So you can actually do a lot of the initial kind of noodling and stuff like that together if somebody has an acoustic guitar. And what you need to decide is going to be the structure of the tune. And one of the easiest ways to do or to create, let's say, even like a very basic chart is using something like Notepad in Windows. It's inexpensive, it's easy to use, and what you're going to do is you're going to kind of lay out the chord structures and then the basic structure of the song, whether it's going to be intro, verse, chorus, pre-chorus, solo, that kind of stuff, what the chords are going to be. And then either the initial person who's sort of setting this up, or perhaps the person who's the drummer in the band, or the percussionist, or the person who's going to program the drums, can lay out a very basic drum track for the song. And that drum track then becomes the guide for everybody else to play to. What's important too is that you share pertinent information about the song that you're going to work on. So when you share audio tracks, and I'll talk about this here in a second, how you're going to share these audio tracks, that you can then have a common meter. So what you want to have is you want to have a chart, a very basic chart with the chord structure, how it's going to look. You want to have the time signature, or sorry, if it's a 4/4 time, 3/4 time, and then you want to have what the meter is going to be. So is it 120 beats per minute? Is it 105 beats per minute? And then somebody who's going to lay down a very basic guide track with the rhythm for the song for people to follow. One of the important things you want to have as well on that percussion track is a count in. So you want to have a count in that's going to give you at least one measure, maybe two measures of an initial count in. And the reason that's important is when you're going to collaborate, you're going to record your stuff and you're going to keep that count in on your recording. So when the person who's compiling it at the end, inevitably, let's say one person's got a little more technical skills in the band, or you hire somebody like me to help and produce you in their own studio to mix it, they want to be able to align all the tracks. So if I have audio, all the audio has the clicks in the exact same spot at the beginning of the track, it's easy for us to line it up, especially if you're playing to that same length every single time. So you take this drum track, you've got your chord charts, you've got your beats per minute, your time signature, and now you share that. And each person now can do their part. And so you might want to start initially with having the person who's going to lay the guitar tracks do their guitar tracks. Now, there's an easy way for the person who's doing their guitar to capture their performance. So you lay the drum track into your DAW. So again, if you're using Mixcraft or anything else, you then record yourself playing to that rhythm track using the chart that you guys have all created together on that Zoom call. You now have this guitar track that you've recorded, and you can export that guitar track as an audio file out of your DAW. And you can now put that onto the cloud, and the person who's compiling this can bring that down and add that to the drum track. The bass player will do the same thing. They'll play their bass line, and then they can keep adding parts. You can then take at least what's a rough mix of that, put that all together, and then if you want to do overdubs or if you want people to redo certain parts, it's very easy to do. And all you're doing is basically, instead of exporting the whole mix with the drums in it, all you're doing is soloing your part. You're taking that click at the front end, and you're going to export that to send to your other band members. So one person compiles it all. At some point, you're going to have a rough mix of all these things that have been sent to you again, and it's still going to have those clicks on the front. And you may want to redo some parts, and now the vocalist maybe wants to add their vocals to the track. So it's a great way for people to collaborate. This is the way, if you've ever purchased tracks done by a professional, you can actually, and a lot of people don't realize this, you can have almost any professional studio drummer, if you have enough money, play on your tracks. And that's the way you do it, is you send basically a rough demo of your track with the count in at the very beginning, the time signature, the arrangement, all of these things, and you send it to that person. And then they send you back the stems or all the individual recorded pieces that they recorded. So let's talk about how you would record drums in the system. So hopefully the drummer has multiple microphones, they have a room space that they rehearse, and they can record their drums. So they can send every single individual track. So they can send the overhead separately, they can send the kick, they can send the snare, the individual toms. They can send, let's say, 7 or 8 different tracks for that drum track, put them on the cloud, and then the person mixing that after can reassemble those. It takes some knack, it takes some trial and error, it takes collaboration as you go. So you need to be able to still talk through Zoom and say, hey, you know what, we're going to move this, or we're going to add this, or you know what, can you redo this part, and that kind of stuff. It takes a little bit longer. It's not like you're all sitting in the same room, but we're not. That's the bottom line right now, is we are not sitting in the same room. So something to try. Inexpensive equipment. You don't need a whole lot. You probably have most of the stuff you need already since you've been practicing at home this whole time. So there you go. Live and in the studio, how to collaborate. We're going to go more in depth. We're going to go more into some of the techniques that you need and some of the stuff that you can do. This has been Live in the Studio, Joe Baptista, and we'll talk to you next time.